1 in every 5 Nigerians struggle to learn to read.
Let's compare diagnostic versus formative versus summative. How are they similar and how are they different? So why should you implement each assessment? Diagnostic assessments will inform teachers of student achievement gaps and other academic abilities. Formative assessments will help teachers recognize when students are stuck during instruction. Summative assessments will measure whether a student has mastered a large quantity of material. When should you implement each assessment? Well, diagnostics are often given the first day of class, mostly before starting a course or a new unit. Formative assessments are administered directly during the teaching process, and summative assessments are given last, at the end of the unit or the end of the period or course. What are some examples of each assessment? Diagnostics can usually be found in the course textbook. Texts usually have pre-course tests. Formative assessments can be as simple as using student questioning techniques. And a summative example can be a class thesis paper. Next, how should you use each assessment? Diagnostic assessments can be used to plan future lessons and to differentiate students into groups. Formative assessments are best used to make teaching decisions on the fly. Should I keep explaining or should I move on? Summative assessments should be used to judge whether or not a student can advance through a course. Right now, I would just like to say thank you for your time and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much.
So now we're calling on Dimitri to speak about it.
Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar series on School Growth Academy. I would like to invite the CEO of Edves Incorporated, Dimeji Falano. Welcome, Dimeji. So we're waiting for you to give us your welcome address.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Can you hear me? Is it clear and loud enough? Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like someone to just signal to me if you can hear me clearly and if you can see my picture. Then before we start the conversation for the day, please, someone from the audience, someone from the room, just try to just signify if you can hear me, you can see me. Thank you very much for that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dimeji Falan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Edvis Limited. At Edvis, we digitize processes and operations in schools, private, public, primary and secondary schools across Africa to ensure that there's a collaboration between teachers, parents, and administrators on learners' education to meet various learning objectives And today we have set aside today for a very important conversation on assessment. And generally, if you look at education and education technology, no company can do it alone. No individual can do it alone. Partnership is very, very important. That's why we have partnered with our speakers today to see how we can have conversation around assessment, especially the formative assessment. And the reason why we are also doing this with the educators in the space is because we believe that the educators should take the lead when it comes to assessment, when it comes to facilitating learning, and when it comes to tracking learning outcome to discover evidence of learning in psychomotor, in affective and cognitive domains. And also, I want us to be ready for the necessary challenges and that the conversations are going to bring to our table, because using technology to influence anything we do in education will always come with initial challenge. And then let us listen to the speakers on how we can overcome the challenges and how we can build resilience to what we want to do in the future. So please, this is a time for us to come to discuss on being deliberate about getting evidence for learning. And I believe that by the end of today, we'll have done justice to the conversation and we'll have created the impact that is expected. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name once again is Dimeji Falano. I'm also going to join the audience shortly, and please enjoy your day. Thank you very much. Nena, over to you. Nena, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dimeji. Thank you. This is an opportunity for us to share some insights on what formative assessments really is and how we can impact our educational sector in a positive way. So we'll be having some panelists on board to share ideas, and I hope the audience will also share ideas with us. So you have the comment section where you can share ideas and tell us your thoughts, share your thoughts and your ideas, and also ask questions, which will be treated hopefully in this 50-minute session that we'll be having. I have with me about 3 panelists here, including myself. I'll also be sharing my own ideas. My name is Nena Okore, and I'm the Director for Learning, Edves Incorporated. And I would like to introduce my colleagues in the educational sector. I'll be starting with a very wonderful lady. She's been a friend for years and an advocate for improved learning outcomes in schools. Rhoda Odibo is here with us. She's a global education practitioner leading academic programming across Africa. Rhoda has, in fact, impacted the world globally in education, in the educational space, and currently she's also a curriculum theorist, an inclusion advocate, and learning strategies. And she's also the head of Africa programs Kizazi, the vice president, Professional Association of Curriculum Theorists in Nigeria, PACTPIN, board member, and she's also so passionate about special needs education. So she's also she's a co-founder of Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation and also the Learning Crafts. I'm so honored to have you on board, Rhoda. Please say hi to our audience and, give us a wave.
Hi everyone.
Thank you for coming. And then I also have with me Adetayo David, a very vibrant educationist as well. He's currently the director of studies at Atlantic Hall Schools, and from my conversation with him, he's very, very good in pedagogy and administration as well. So he's here to share his story as well. He's a bachelor and master's degree in mechanical engineering and educational technology. And in addition, he also has a postgraduate diploma in education. He's a certified educator with Microsoft, and he also has 15 years administrative experience. So that brings us to the administrative part of formative assessment. So I know he'll be sharing some insights with us, and I'll be so glad to have him here. Welcome, Tayo. Please wave.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here.
All right. We have a third panelist joining us soon from Tanzania, Emmanuel Kiza, and once he comes on board, I'll be introducing him officially. So yes, we're going to start right away. But before we start, I would like the audience to watch another video just to give a little intro of what formative assessment really is and to get us thinking along that line.
How do you know how your students are doing? How do they know? For Andre and his teacher, Ms. G, most of this knowledge never goes in the gradebook, but that doesn't mean it isn't important. Through various strategies, Ms. G is constantly assessing how her students are learning, how quickly they're approaching the learning targets informed by the standards. And she invites students into the process so they are assessing their own learning. Because the whole point is to help everyone decide what's next. It helps students to be actively involved in their learning, helps them identify goals to move them forward toward college and career readiness, and it helps Ms. G refine her instructional plan for the next hour or the next day. This is formative assessment, a deliberate process used by teachers and students during instruction to provide specific, actionable, and immediate feedback. Formative practices promote ongoing reflection, and they're used to quickly adjust teaching and learning. Unlike the big summative events that many people think of when they hear the word assessment, formative assessment is a process that happens every day. It's also the most powerful type of assessment for our students. While the other two types of assessment primarily report on learning, research has confirmed that formative practices can have a direct impact on learning in significant and positive ways. You could say formative assessment is the only type with the power to transform student learning through instruction. Why is that? It's because formative assessment is really a part of instruction. It's teachers using their expertise to assess students while learning is happening, looking for patterns in student learning, having ongoing conversations with students about their own learning process. Formative feedback should be as immediate as possible and always include specific ways an individual student can improve. This personalizes learning. In many ways, formative assessment is a reflective process for both teacher and student. A defining characteristic is student self-reflection or metacognition. But students can't fully reflect on their learning if they're not clear on what the learning target is. Teachers play a critical role of explaining that learning goal. So the first step in the formative assessment process is for teachers to make sure they have a deep understanding of what the goals really are by engaging in a thorough examination of the standards and the knowledge, skills, and behaviors kids need for success. The next step is to think through what proficiency in the standard being taught really looks like, paving the way for useful feedback and a personalized approach to learning. If you're like Ms. G, and if you're like most teachers, you use some formative techniques all the time. It may look different from lesson to lesson, day to day, and even from student to student. But what is universal is that formative assessment is purposefully designed by teachers to use within their own instruction. Because the real power of formative assessment is in how it's used by students and teachers to refine the teaching and learning process. Although a principal or other administrator certainly might check in on formative assessment as part of coaching a teacher's instruction, the real purpose of formative data is for the student and teacher to determine what's next. So that's the final step in formative assessment, using this data to impact teaching and learning. If nothing is done with the information, it isn't formative. Every one of these steps relies on educator expertise and student voice. You can look at formative assessment as any educator close to a child, a classroom teacher, a librarian, a school counselor, or someone else, providing personalized instruction based on a two-way conversation about the student's goals and what he or she needs to get there. This personalization improves student outcomes and helps kids as they climb toward readiness for college and career. Use this website to find more on formative practices, including research and resources for classroom teachers. How do you know how?
So I'm sure we gained a lot of insight from the video we just watched. I'd like you to type in the comments one particular thing you've gained from the video we just watched. Thank you very much. As you do that, please type in the comments and let us know your thoughts about the video you just watched. Now we'll be going directly into our discussion. And I'm so excited about this topic because it's something that has not been really emphasized in schools. Some educators might actually be doing it, but they wouldn't know they're actually doing they're practicing formative assessment. So I'll start with all my panelists. What exactly is formative assessment and how do schools view formative assessment? Rhoda?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, great, great. Okay, so I like to view formative assessments from this perspective. And I like to, as a teacher, I like to use very practical, words that help to trigger understanding. So formative assessments, from my experience, are a set of strategic reflective exercises. Strategic reflective exercises during teaching and learning that promotes student learning outcomes. I pick those words and I'm picking them very carefully because formative assessment is one, a strategy, meaning that it is an exercise that needs to be done with an end goal in mind. The second trigger word is reflective. The only ways of formative assessments are structured is that they are built upon an exercise called meaning that as you're engaging in a formative assessment, what you're doing is that you are observing student behavior, you're observing student outputs, and that process of reflection allows you to inform what the next goal is, which is that it is towards students' learning outcomes. How are schools doing it? How are they doing it? Well, from the data we've collected, there is a significant percentage of schools that are not conducting formative assessments. I'm sure we're going to go into that level of deep dive later. But when you think through formative assessments as a reflective strategic exercise that promotes student learning outcomes, and something that happens every time during the learning cycle, then it tells you how it then begins to let you know whether it's actually being done or not. So I'll pause there and let my other colleagues speak to it.
All right, thank you. Even though there was a break at some points, I think I understood what you actually meant, that it's about personalized learning. And it's very important for schools to embrace that system of learning in the 21st century. So I'll move over to Tayo. Tayo, hi. Can you tell us your own perspective about formative assessment and how schools view formative assessments?
Okay, thank you very much, Rhoda. Thank you, Nina. Just in addition to, and I think Rhoda did justice to that, but just in addition to what she said, albeit a bit practical too, it's also known as assessment for learning. And it's one of the most powerful educational tools for promoting effective learning in school. Student achievement is measured in terms of how much they have learned, what their weaknesses are and strengths are, and how they can be helped to improve their learning. So all of this, you are just on the pathway of formative assessment. So learning takes place in class when students are able to make sense of what they learn and construct meaning and are able to interpret it on the basis of probably their prior knowledge and even experience through active participation in the learning process. So when students are actively involved in the learning process, they're able to take ownership of learning. They know how to assess themselves. So it's all process of formative assessment. An assessment conducted by teachers during the learning process in order to modify teaching and learning activities and improve learner attainment. So it's an ongoing cycle of dialogue. It's an ongoing cycle of observation and even adjustment that you keep making to your instructions and the materials that you have put together. So it tells you what learners can do or cannot do or can do with some support. So that's what formative assessment does. It's going to give the teacher an insight into what the learners can do, into what they cannot do, and of course, what they will need to do with support. So it allows teachers to give individual support to learners as they are all at different points in the pathway of learning. So effective feedback is key here, and it's so important in when we're talking about formative assessment. I think that should suffice for now.
Yes, thank you. That's quite exhaustive. Now, you said something about at each point in learning, that formative assessment is done at each point in a student's learning. The thing is, would you mind sharing some styles of formative assessment? Because I know that a lot of educators who are part of the audience are already doing this in their classrooms, but they might not know that what they're actually doing is formative assessment. I'd like us to share some of the styles for formative assessment, and then it will be a form of reflection for our audience to know if I have been doing this already or I need to pick up some of these ideas and it would help me in my classroom. So I'll start from you, Tayo, and then Rhoda will add some of her own ideas as well.
Okay, so I'm sure Rhoda has extensive knowledge on this as we have interacted before. But I would just say a few from my experience as a classroom, a subject teacher, and of course as a manager of curriculum. So some of those things you may want to look at is, for example, peer assessment. So when you do peer assessment, but over time, what we have seen is that teachers, they don't want to take risks because they realize that students don't know how to do this properly. So they don't want to risk it. They don't rely on the assessment that has been done by their students. So they tend to want to do it alone. They tend to want to take control of the entire assessment process in the classroom. So peer assessment is one of those ways you can effectively use formative assessment in class, giving opportunity for students to be able to assess themselves. Let them be able to exchange their work, let them be able to put comments where necessary, but with appropriate rubrics and guidance from the teacher. Then also the area of self-assessment also. We must be able to allow the student to also self-assess themselves, to look at themselves that, okay, this is the objective of the lesson. I've been able to draw up my success criteria from the lesson, and then I'm not able to measure how far I have gone in the lesson. So I can determine what I can do, what I cannot do, and what I can do with support. So giving opportunity to students in the class to assess themselves, giving them that opportunity. We don't trust the student. That's the problem. Most of the time, we don't trust them. We feel that we say, oh, they are going to overrate themselves. They are going to underrate themselves. And then, but I believe with appropriate rubrics and giving to them and the pattern of answering, of assessing themselves, they will be able to do justice to that. And it makes teachers' job even easy in a way, because what you're doing is that you are using one stone to kill two birds. You are also impacting them. You are also giving them confidence, helping them to take ownership of learning and assessment. And at the same time, you are also relaxing and being a facilitator you are supposed to be in the classroom. Another very important formative assessment tool is questioning in a class. Questioning. That's what we miss it most of the time, because we tend to make our questioning to be close-ended. So when questioning are close-ended, it is either yes or no. So you are not giving the student the opportunity to think creatively. You are not giving them the opportunity to think innovatively or think fluently in the class. But when you give opportunity for open-ended question, give them opportunity to raise up their hands, answer questions, and then you probe them to deepen understanding of what you have taught. So, for example, you are asking a question on global warming, and a student, you are asking, what is global warming? And students are able to tell you what global warming then it's expected that the teacher will now be able to probe the student, ask further questions from what global warming is. So that is a way of empowering students, giving students confidence, and allowing them to think more creatively in the process of questioning. Then feedback also is a vital, is very vital to formative assessment. Feedback is very vital.
Okay, Tayo, hold the thoughts. You're becoming so passionate now. Just hold the thoughts. We'll still get to that level. Okay, so
right.
I'll let Rhoda share some ideas. I had an insightful discussion with her yesterday, and in fact, I learned so many things. I had to start jotting down. So, Rhoda, can you share some practical examples of how formative assessments can be applied in the classroom?
Okay, so I hope my audio is better now. Please, I'm in a place where it's not very, the internet's not very strong, but I'll try and be a sharpshooting. So, every time we want to assess kids or children or students, there are ways we can do it. So sometimes we're assessing the course-related skills and knowledge, right? Other times we're assessing critical thinking and analysis skills, which is something that we definitely want to begin to do. And one of the ways, whenever we talk about critical thinking, people often think, oh, it's some big, idea that's somewhere that, we are still trying to work out how we can incorporate it into teaching and learning. But actually, you can incorporate it by using formative assessments. So a critical thinking is one way, and then encouraging students to think creatively. So let me share some practical examples. Something I love the most is called exit tickets, or in other words, some other people call it exit slips. What happens here is that students actually use these exit tickets to answer one or more questions at the end of the class period, just one. And what that exit ticket tries to do is to demonstrate the main idea of the lesson of the day and how well they have absorbed that particular lesson. So an exit ticket can just be in a small card, something like the way you have letter cards, alphabet cards, and your number cards. Exit tickets is really for them to put the main idea in there. I'm really free. I don't know if you can hear me. Is this okay? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
you're clear. You're clear.
Okay, great. And there are many exit tickets, exit slip samples, even on the internet you can download. Then, and one good thing is that with exit tickets, you are able to then score 1 mark each every time, cumulatively, to be able to tell how well the student is learning. And you can also use that to inform the number of students who got your exit ticket questions right, to inform the next lesson. So, because at the end of the day, the primary role of formative assessment is really force feedback for them. Okay, so there's another one we call the 1 minute paper. 1 minute paper is kind of an informal assessment, formative assessment, where students are really just prompted to respond, to give a short response, to questions that you are related to, and this can be actually posted online. So you can actually get them to post something that's question as simple as what was the most valuable or the most important thing you learned in the lesson today, and what key questions from them. We have something, I think a lot of educators know this. It's called the think, pair, share. Where students work together in pairs or even in small groups to answer a question. It's kind of like a turn and talk. You say, you do it a lot in your churches. Say turn and talk to your neighbor. And you can actually do a turn and talk in your classroom. And you say, turn, brainstorm together and answer this particular question. How do you think that students could have behaved differently in this comprehensive passage? And then they both talk together. They think, they collaborate on sharing their ideas. They come up with one, and when you call back the class, what have you done? A form of formative assessment, and they select who is going to speak on behalf of the pair. Okay, so that's one way. Another way is what Taya had mentioned. Is like a Socratic way, the use of questioning. But then in this case, students help one another to apply the ideas, right? So you can ask students you can ask them different questions. So just, in their textbook, in their whatever material you have given them, let them annotate. You know what it means to annotate? Just to underline, or use a, what's it called? What's that? A highlighter.
Highlighter.
Yes, you know, to annotate before they come to the class tomorrow. You give them you assign them a text to read, and then tell them to annotate the ones themselves that they really, really feel is going to be a question from their end or a big idea from their end. You know, and if I can just end with creative thinking, you know, there's two things I like the most. One is a word journal, right? Another is called the invented dialogue. With the word journals, students just summarize an entire lesson in a single word. One word. Do you know what that means? It takes them a while to say what is the big one word that this lesson has actually taught. And usually you should advise them not to pick the topic. Of course, students will just pick the topic. So, but let them use another word to describe the one word that they will say, you know, and then use that later to expand on their knowledge. So let me stop there. There's a ton of examples, you know, that you can use, but I think these ones are good enough.
Okay, so when I was a teacher, I usually use poll, you know, setting polls for students. At the end of the lesson, you set a poll where the students speak, I'm getting better. That's part of self-assessments, right? I'm getting better. Oh, I think I'm struggling a bit here and all that. And then you collate the poll to see how many students actually understood that concept in the class. I don't know, where do you categorize that? Do you categorize it under exit tickets, or do you categorize it under peer assessments or self-assessments rather?
Nina, can you repeat that again, please?
Okay, so can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so I said when I was a teacher, there was a practice I usually did then in my classroom. I call it poll, like learning poll, where you create a kind of poll and then the students answer the questions based on their level of understanding. So it's just a short quiz or a poll where the students would answer and say, I'm getting better, I'm not yet there, or I think I'm struggling with this concept. So where do you actually place such style of assessment? Do you place it under self-assessment or under the exit ticket, just like what Rhoda said?
It's actually self-assessment, obviously.
Okay.
So you are teaching the student to assess their own learning. So taking ownership and responsibility for learning. So obviously.
Okay. So I can see a lot of our viewers commenting and writing all the things they're learning. I think we're already practicing formative assessment here. We're practicing formative assessment here already because it shows that they're getting a lot of ideas from us, and we'll be sending more ideas across so that they can also pick from the chat. That brings me to another question. We've talked about the styles and how the students can, you know, be involved in formative assessment. Now let's go back to the educator or the teacher. How does the teacher collate this data? You know, I'm sure a lot of us may have been doing this in the classroom, but there's nothing backing up what we're doing. There's nothing supporting or giving us evidence of what we're doing in the classroom. And the best way to be a fantastic teacher is to be a reflective teacher. If you are a teacher who reflects on your practice, you know, it's easy for you to know where you're getting it wrong or where you're getting it right. And that is by keeping records. So how is it possible for teachers to keep records of formative assessment, and what kind of problems or issues can arise from keeping formative assessment? Because from what we are saying, it's practically an every lesson, not just an everyday activity. It's an every lesson activity. So a teacher who takes about 8 subjects per day or 6 subjects per day is expected to do at least 6 various formative assessments, you know, or even more in the same day. So how does the teacher keep track of recording and keeps track of all the students' performance every day, looking at the way our educational system is currently? So I'll start with Rhoda.
I was hoping you start with Tayo.
I don't mind.
Anyway.
Or do you want to start Tayo? Okay, let me start with Tayo then. Let me start with him as the administrator.
Okay. Of course, Rhoda is also an administrator, an international one.
Yes, she is an international one. She's
okay. All right. Let me start with the challenges.
okay.
Although there are a few challenges with implementation of formative assessment, it's easy for we as teachers, we know what it means. It's easy for administrators to say you have to do this, you have to do that. The question is, do they actually do it, even themselves? Do they know what it means to do it? So that if you come from that perspective, you know how to manage the people under you appropriately, and you understand their plight also. So a lot of challenges come into the implementation of formative assessment, like the grading process, the change in examination pattern, teachers' assessment, even technological issues. So, but I'm going to focus on maybe 2 or 3. I'll just mention 2 or 3. Of course, you'll be able to see, as teachers here, you'll be able to see this happening in your various lessons. And of course, we are not oblivious of these challenges. Number 1, the problem of time to enter the score in your mark book or in your mark sheet. That's a problem, because you have so many things to put together, and then you are pressed for time, and you need to put those scores, those grades in the scorebook. So another one is the cumbersome nature of assessing multiple tasks, especially when you're talking about formative assessment. Formative assessment comes with multiple tasks in the class. So you have so many tasks, so many activities going on during lessons, and you want to find a way to keep a tab on those, the progress that the students are making. So that's another challenge that we'll face, that I believe teachers can also relate with. Then the students' ability to assess themselves themselves. So you can see that's a problem, to accept themselves and peers. I've mentioned this before. We don't trust them. It's risky. So we feel under pressure. So we feel pressed to be the one to do the assessment. So that's another challenge we see in the classroom. Then the feedback issue is another big problem. And I don't know if I should talk about that now, but I think it will make sense to talk about it. Like I mentioned earlier, I said it's a very vital aspect of formative assessment. But not all feedback is effective, as you can see. Feedback needs to be timely, and it needs to be specific, and it needs to include suggestions for ways to improve future performance. So any feedback that does not have these features or this element, it's not an effective feedback. So feedback has to be diagnostic as well as prescriptive. But that's the problem we have in the classroom. The time is so short for us to now be able to make sure that our feedback is diagnostic and as well as prescriptive. So, but these 2 problems could be solved with the Edves Formative Assessment Portal. I've interacted with it, and we are using it. And I believe we're one of the pioneers of the Edves Formative Assessment Portal. And over time, we have also helped to improve the portal. The learning management system comes with homework or classwork and CBT portal. So it's all encompassing, it's one in all. So with the right rubrics, records of class activities could be harvested for the formative assessment portal and captured on topical basis, which can be shared with the senior leadership team, and it can also be shared with parents, showing if the student is emerging, if the student is proficient in that topic, or the student needs improvement in the topic. In fact, this has given our parents so much confidence in the school. It has given the opportunity for parents to now be able to see what their children are learning. Our school is a full boarding school, so there is no opportunity for them to go back home and return so that the parents are able to see what they are doing. But Edvis has been able to provide an opportunity for us where we can send real-time progress report to parents. So they can see it from their portal weekly or bi-weekly. They can see the progress that children are making. They know in a particular topic, they know where they are emerging, they know where they are proficient, and they know where they need improvement, so that they can then effectively engage with the school and, of course, indirectly with the teachers as well. So I believe I can stop there a bit for Rhoda to also come.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's a success story, in fact. I think this also solves the problem of covering curriculum race. There's this race for schools to cover the curriculum, and in trying to cover the curriculum, a lot of things are left undone. A lot of things are not covered in that process.
Absolutely.
So we're doing more of covering the curriculum, not going in depth into the curriculum, and ensuring that the students are actually learning. So with what Edves is doing, it's basically going to make life easy for teachers and easy for educators as well, especially with formative assessment, which is a daily practice. So I'll go back to Rhoda and hear her own thoughts.
Honestly, I think Taya did justice to it. First of all, by outlining the problems, because sometimes when you don't outline and highlight the problem, it becomes difficult for you to know the exact strategy to use to solve it. So Taya did a great job by talking about the problem from the expectations from administration, the problem from time management from the from educators, and the problem of not trusting the students in able to be supportive in the data collection. I think we actually we don't give students enough credit for the kind of support and participation they can bring into teaching and learning experience. Many times, so when I mentioned exit cards as one way for students to for formative assessments to happen. One lost opportunity that educators have often is the students' non-participation. So I will collect exit cards, and then I will put because exit cards, again, you have to design what is easily doable. So exit card should not be more than one question, and without one question, you can either give a 1 mark or 2 marks max. And every time you give a 1 mark, you put it as a student. So for me, what I always did was I had a spreadsheet. So any teacher who does not use technology and leverage on learning management systems such as that Edvis is offering is the teacher who really doesn't understand what it means to manage your time. Whenever you have a break period, you quickly go into your portal and place the scores of all your students. That's one way. Another way, if you are unable to access internet at that point, you should have a spreadsheet where you manually just put in the points immediately after you find yourself having a break. Time management is usually the big deal here. But I can tell you that many times the times that you're using to gist with a partner in the office, to drink your Coke when you can drink it in 2 minutes or 3, you use 10 minutes to do it, and you're supposed to put in your scores. Believe me, all those moments count. Or if you use your time well, then you'll be able to, manage your formative assessment record entry. And because it's quite important for that progress reporting, just as Taya said. And one of the ways is that you literally need to find many ways to tell how well a student is progressing. So for instance, a child might be failing, right? They might be failing, but their formative assessment will tell you something else. Their formative assessment will tell you how well they're engaging. Their formative assessment is telling you that bite-size success that is happening in everyday classrooms. That is the place where you, the teacher, is able to convince administration and convince parents that there is potential in this child. And I see this potential because I have a record of their engagement. I have a record of their brainstorming. I have a record of their creativity. I have a record of their collaboration. That is exactly what the World Economic Forum is telling us. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Right. So where data informs practice is what you need to continue to do. So if it is important to you that you communicate the strengths in students, then it is definitely important to you to use a formative assessment to communicate the progress of the children, not the final results or final exam results, end of term, mid-term, quiz test results. Formative assessment and time management in imputing the records for formative assessment is the first entry to the strengths of every student that you teach. That's why it's very key for us to make sure that it is something that we prioritize time for. That's where I'll stop. It's about time management.
Yes, thank you very much. So before we go on a short break, I would like us to answer one of the viewers' questions. Importance of having formative assessments on 3 domains of learning. You know, there's this worry that how do you assess if affective domain, for example, how do you assess the affective domain? Because from what we are saying, it's like it's so easy to assess written work and tests and classwork, but how about affective domain? How well can we assess that? What kind of style can we use to assess that?
Okay, who should answer that? Okay. Okay, if I may come in.
Go ahead, Tayo.
Okay, if I may come in, I saw that, of course, there are mentioned 3 domains of learning: the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain, and of course the affective domain. Okay, but I know that the evaluating affective is usually a problem. But then, if you understand formative assessment as not really being about grades, so I think that's what we need to understand. That's what we need to clear in our minds, that we are not pressed for grades. We're pressed for change of attitude. We're pressed for change of behavior. That is what it's about. So now, affective, the way when you look at affective, it's teaching how students work with one another in the classroom, how they collaborate, how they take risks in the classroom, how resilient are they, how persevering are they. That's what that is teaching them. So what that is going to do is that it's going to impact on the cognitive learning domain. That's what it's going to do. It's going to impact on the cognitive. So that's a role. You cannot measure, you may not be able to measure or grade affective, and we shouldn't even try to grade. Rather, we should try to create an enabling environment where collaboration can take place during lesson, and so students can learn how to take turn. They can learn how to wait for their time. They can learn how to work with one another. So that is affective. So once they learn how to do that, they can learn how to improve on the cognitive domain, where they can now derive their grades and then record for formative assessment. So I think that is what all of that is about. Then the psychomotor also, that's what it does. Both the psychomotor, when you expose students to doing in the classroom, using their hands in the classroom, constructing things, making things during lesson, then putting them in teams to work together. Then there are also, it's not that you put in team, one is not working with the other, trying to come up with his own idea. So that is not, it means that affective aspect of that child is not developed, which is the responsibility of educator to make sure that we are able to ensure that they work in the group. It's not about the grade at the end of the day during formative assessment. It's about changing the behavior of the child and the ability to work together with others. So I think Rhoda can also take it from there.
Okay, I think you've really talked about it a lot. And Rhoda has been actually talking about it. When she mentioned creative thinking, when she mentioned the exit point, when I also mentioned setting personal assessment and using polls, that's a form of affective domain, because you are trying to assess how they feel about the subject. And I think for the first session, what we've taken out from here is time management is very critical. And formative assessment is not just weekly, it's daily. It's a daily practice. It's something you do in your classroom every day. And it is very important that formative assessment should be digitized, because it makes life easier for the educator. And emphasis shouldn't just be on grades, but it should be on behavioral change. So I want to say thank you very much. We'll be right back. We're going on a very short break, just 1 minute. Dear viewers, please stay tuned, and then we'll come back to continue our discussion. Thank you.
Edvis is Africa's leading digital educational platform, which enables administration, communication, finance, teaching, and learning beyond the classroom. Edvis allows you as a parent to access and track your child's academic reports and personal growth at any time, giving you a better understanding of your child's academic performance.
Have a nice day at school.
We give you the security and reassurance you need to excel in your daily activities and manage your financial obligations to your child's education. Edvis provides an administrative and management system which enhances accountability, teamwork, and growth needed for a thriving organization. Which brings perfect results. Teach creatively, learn effectively, track your child's performance easily, and do so much more with Edvis. Edvis, digital education. Visit www.edvis.net to get started now.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're glad to have you here once again. For those who are just joining us, we've been talking about formative assessment, the benefits of formative assessment, the styles of formative assessment, and how it can be digitized to make life easier for the educator. And we have had my panelists here, Rhoda Odibo and Akintayo David. I've learned a lot from them, and they're still here to share more ideas with us. Okay, so we'll be going into the second session right now. And our focus for this second session is on the benefits of formative assessment. What are the benefits of formative assessment? Let's start from the learner. You know, I've always had this, I'm sorry to shake some tables, but I've always had this feeling, that's my personal opinion, please, about stressing students when it's time for WAEC and NECO and other exit examinations, because I've had this opinion as an educator that this is something that should have been done right from when that child was in grade 7 or JSS 1. You know, it's not when the child is in SS3 that you should start teaching the child some concepts that they should have mastered before that time. So it's like you're jam-packing a lot of work on the students at that level just to write an examination. So this is where formative assessment comes in. So I want us to focus on the learner for a while and talk about how formative assessment is supposed to help the learner improve the learning outcomes and improve academic performance as well. So I'll start from Rhoda. Okay, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
yes, we
hear me?
can.
I have to apologize because it's I'm in a place where the network is not good. I like how you had this question because it actually then talks about a lot about how it is beneficial to the learner. And Tayo has been trying to get us to understand the place of feedback in formative assessment. And the reason why I want to emphasize a little bit about and stress on where Tayo has been trying to make a point on is that feedback is the food of champions. And feedback is one way of of helping anybody, whether it's an educator, student, parent, anybody, community, leaderships, whatever. It's the one way that people actually know where things are breaking down for them or where things are going well for them and how to prioritize what should be the focus. So I would say shifting away from the importance of giving feedback, because there is that whole process, feedback loop process, that is very critical for formative assessment. It's nice to give exit cards. It's nice to give 1 minute papers. Well, what comes out of it? You are supposed to know if it was a main idea that you're looking for and the child didn't get it, or 60% of your students didn't get it. You should reteach that lesson. So the benefits of formative assessments, just to slightly shift away from that stress, for that point I wanted to stress. One major benefit is that it helps you to define your learning goals. Because again, are my students ready for a high stakes exam, such as IGCSE, common entrance, etc. You're able to know if that is your vision and your focus or the outcomes that you're looking for. That's one way. It helps you to define your goals. It also helps you to understand how you're going to improve the rigor of your lessons. And pace. They help. If I'm going to give a practical example on how formative assessment help with rigor and pacing, when you begin your lesson and you quickly give a 1 minute paper, or you say do a turn and talk for students to brainstorm and come back to you on a question that you ask them, and you count your students, and 16 out of 20 students do not get the point. What does that tell you? Your pace is too fast, or you need to slow down on the rigor that you have gone. Maybe you actually need to go to what you were thinking was a prior knowledge and make that prior knowledge become present objectives. Another way that formative assessment is beneficial, and I'll stop here because I know Taya has a ton to share with us, is that it helps to improve academic achievement. It helps to actually declare the kind of goals that you want to have, and by providing students with those academic milestones that you need to cover because of what you're seeing from formative assessment, it helps them to understand their goal setting, and together you can then plan towards an academic achievement milestone. And of course, it also helps to enhance students' motivation. So with motivation, which is a very key element of learning, you can now use that formative feedback to say to the students, you are doing well here. Well done. This is where you can improve. Well done. This is how you're going to improve. I'll stop there.
All right. So before I move to Tayo, I would like to address a misconception here that I can see. Someone is asking the question, is classwork, homework, are they not supposed to be part of, and then continuous assessment tests, are they not supposed to be part of formative assessment? So do you think those things are formative assessment? For me, I think those things become formative when you use the data to influence how you teach and what you want to teach for the next lesson. So giving homework can be formative when you use the feedback from the homework to influence how you would be teaching the lesson for the next day or the next week. And then continuous assessment tests can you actually say that that is also formative? Tayo?
CA test is
Okay.
not formative. It depends on, just for the reasons you stated, it's summative assessment. It's actually because you need to harvest records, grades, and then store somewhere. So it's not necessarily to use it to construct new learning for the students. So if that is the aim, to check their understanding of a particular concept, then it becomes formative. Otherwise, if there's no reference to it again, then it's just summative. That's it.
Okay. So I'm sure we've clarified that confusing remark about what formative assessment really is. Then I want us to also look at how parents, so I think, Rhoda, or do you have any other thing to say about students? I want us to quickly move to parents. Tayo?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Rhoda did justice to that. But for me, I think we may not possibly be able to separate the benefit, because we were trying to, you ask if the benefit to learners and teachers, I think they are quite symbiotic in a way. And then the benefit also apply to both. Rhoda mentioned rigor, and I was thinking that the data collected indicates learners' needs, which can be used to create a rigorous learning environment that will challenge every learner to grow. So, which fitted into what Rhoda already said. And it can also provide learners with clear targets to work towards, and teachers can also help clear misunderstandings before students get off track. So what I like to do, or what we like to do, is to make sure that every student has a target in the subject, and the target is written in the student's note. For example, at the start of the term, you write the student target. If it is A star, or B, or C. So we negotiate it. We have conversation with the student. You discuss it, that I think you should be able to make A star, because we have a baseline data. You can use a baseline data to that checks with the ability grade, so that from there you can come up with aspirational targets. So that target, the student, you have discussion with the student and you state it in the note. So as you continue to engage with formative assessment, it provides even the learner the clear target, whether they are meeting the target, they are getting to the point of hitting their A star, or their B or A, or they are going off track. So the teacher will now be able to help to clarify misunderstanding in that regard. Then the data that is obtained from formative assessment also can help learner to close the gap between the current learning, current knowledge, what they have learned presently, and their goals, which is the success criteria, where they are actually going. So what they know now and where they are going. So the data that is obtained from the formative assessment can help to close that gap if properly interpreted and implemented. So then, using the data gathered from those frequent learning checks, empower teachers to make sound and informed decision about students' learning. So that's the role for the teacher anyway. For me, that's the role for the teacher. It's data collected from frequent learning checks will empower teachers to make sound and informed decisions about student learning. And it's also good for engaging with parents also. Since the instrumentality of data,
we want to come to that now. Yes, we want to come to the parents level. Yes, we're coming into the parents now. I was actually clapping, and I was feeling the vibe already about how digitizing data from formative assessment is very key, and it's so easy. Edves has made it so easy for educators. It's just a click away. You know, it's not like you're writing long notes and all that. Just a click here and there, and then you get your data, and then you can utilize the data for whatever reason you would want to use it for. Now, getting to the parent side, someone asked the question, in fact, as if the person is reading our minds, that can this be sent? Can this be sent to parents bi-weekly or daily? And I'm of the opinion, like I said, formative assessment is a daily practice. So what do you think about when it should be sent to parents? The feedback should be sent to parents. And I would also like our viewers to see how Edves also supports parents' feedback, how parents can view their feedback when formative, as regards formative assessment data as well. So
Okay. It all depends. It depends on how less busy you are. Let me put it in quote. It depends on if you have all the time in this world to now begin to send progress to parents on daily basis. So you now need to be smart about it. Actually, a lot of things are going on. A lot of things are going on daily basis. Every contact with the students, their assessment, their works to be done. But you now want to be smart by now looking at it. Which one am I going to grade? Which one am I going to record in all of this? But let's have it at the back of our mind that what is important is for those children to do well, for them to perform well. If you have given them certain activities, one-off activities, and you grade them based on one-off activities, then it is injustice to them. It is not appropriate to them. There is no love for the child in that. So, but where you now have the love for the child is when you now begin to look at the activities you've given to them. You now begin to look at it that, okay, now I've administered these materials. How many of my students have been able to engage with the material? What is the grade like? So if it is not as expected, then it is expected now for you to now look at the material again, see how you can then come up with data-driven intervention strategies, then to be able to support those students who have not actually come up to that level. So what you are sharing with parents, it's your call. If you want to make it daily, I think there is provision in that for Edves if you want to send it on daily basis. But I think that is going to be cumbersome. That is going to be too unnecessarily rigorous. So my advice will be weekly. So when parents are able to see weekly before meeting, they're able to see that, oh, this is what my child is making in this subject. I can be able to tell confidently my child is doing well in biology. I can tell my child is doing well in chemistry or in economics or in business study. Oh, my child is weak in physics. My child is weak in literature. They know because the Edves platform is going to provide parents with that information where your child is emerging, where is improving, where it needs improvement, or where is proficient in that particular topic for that subject. So that's what happened there. So I can advise that weekly make a lot of sense.
Okay, so someone also asked a question here that how can formative assessment be used among preschoolers? How can formative assessment be used among preschoolers? So I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I got you. I know you know I won't want to respond to that.
Okay, so I would like to share my own experience. Okay. For preschoolers, you use more of rubrics marking, right? You can call it developmental trackers on there are certain objectives that you want them to achieve. For example, how well are they able to have a very good pencil grip, and how well are they able to trace, how well are they able to scribble. So you create markers or rubrics that can be used to assess them, and then this can also be digitized as well. You can create a table and then digitize it. Edves also has that sort of platform for preschoolers where it's just a click away. Click on the particular rubric you want to assess, and then you're good to go. So I hope that answers the question. And someone else is asking, can classwork or homework benefit learners alike? Which one can suit best on the formative assessment? Can homework give a fairer assessment?
I believe, Nina, you have answered that question before.
Yes,
I think it
yes.
fits into the answer you gave earlier. It depends on what you do with the homework afterwards.
Exactly. And I think as educators, we need to be very creative. We need to be more creative in our style of questioning. I think Rhoda talks about that as well. It's not just setting questions in form of straightforward questions, like you also said. You could also, it could be a presentation. It could be a project. It could be an experiment to be conducted. It could be a drawing to show their idea about the concept. So as teachers, we need to be very, very creative at what we do. And if you do not trust if you do not trust your students when you give them homework in terms of were they able to do it themselves, was it individually done, you could do a defense. I do that as a teacher a lot. When a child does homework, I would ask them to come out and teach their mates. That's also part of peer assessment, teaching their mates what they've done at home and how they did it as well. So that way, the child knows that he or she is supposed to defend the knowledge he or she has gained. So it's more about being very flexible and creative in your approach to assessing your students as well. Welcome back, Rhoda. So we're talking about parent feedback, how the data can also help parents to gain necessary feedback. And I totally agree with what Tayo says about we should be quite very professional in giving out information to parents, especially when you have a child who is struggling, a child who needs a lot of learning support. I have always been an advocate for teachers doing their work first before you complain about a child. So your formative assessment should start from the classroom, and then you can give regular feedback to the parents. It mustn't be weekly. It can be bi-weekly. It can be weekly. It can be daily. Maybe something that has to do with affective domain. Oh, he worked well today. Oh, he was able to achieve this and this and this. It mustn't be the other style of assessment where you have to put scores and all that. So for me, the teacher has to show evidence that they have actually started working on that child before sending such reports home for the parents to see. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I let me just quickly apologize. I'm so sorry. My network where I am.
It's fine.
Network is really crazy.
It's fine.
So I leave my video off just in case. I think,
right.
I mean, we've kind of stressed on this point around data and how data should inform practice. In fact, data should inform practice, processes, philosophies, and principles. We've talked a lot about that. And it doesn't take anything worse away from the parents, who are your critical clients. In fact, customers, because the students are the consumers, but your customers are the parents, and because they are the paying ones, isn't it? So, and yes, if data should inform the kind of conversation you have with them, and the only way you can convince the parents is if you show them the evidence in your data, the evidence that you have to prove that this child is underperforming, overperforming, needs support, etc. Now, the one thing I would just add to it is that whether we, depending on how you structure your school systems, what you need to do is to automate, of course, that feedback kind of process that goes to parents. But you need to use data to convince them. So, and why formative assessment is the best strategy is because what formative assessment actually does, and why it's very important in your parent partnership strategies, is that it celebrates the strengths. That is where formative assessment, that's what formative assessment actually is designed to do. It actually figures out the strengths of the child and actually particularly identifies the weak areas, because then you can say in 12 weeks of in 10 instructional weeks, for every time we did practice around collaboration, creative thinking, and critical thinking, this child was able to express themselves in word form, in oral form, in drawing form, whatever form that depends on the grade level that you're working with, and was able to explain herself 10 out of 11 times, 2 out of 3 times. And that's a strengths-based conversation. The problem we have is that we always present the problem to parents. And the reason why we do that is because we don't have enough data found in the usage of formative assessments to inform the conversation. And when you tell someone, this is how well you're doing, which is why when in the world of coaching, we always say, celebrate the strengths, right? And outsource your weaknesses. In this case, you may not be able to outsource the weakness, but you want to what? Amplify the strengths of your child, and so that you can start, the parent can start from a place of, I agree with these points, and I see the journey, and I see where what my child can do. Because when you start from a can do, rather than he cannot do X, I cannot, or rather than he cannot do, you are opening the door for conversation, and that's where partnership is unlocked.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yes, so now let's go to policy makers. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so let's round up with policy makers and curriculum development. Everybody keeps saying, oh, our Nigerian curriculum is this and that and that and that. And I'm one advocate for our Nigerian curriculum. It's a very fantastic curriculum. So I would like us to talk about how formative assessment can influence curriculum development and Africa as a whole, in Africa as a whole, in the world as a whole, starting from our own motherland as well, and then to other parts of the world. How can we use formative assessment to impact positively on our curriculum as a country, or as a continent, rather?
Okay, should I go? Not sure.
Please, yes, please,
Rhoda,
Rhoda, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I shared an example with you, Nena and Tayo, yesterday, and I think it's worthy of repeating. As a time when we,
yes,
I'm in this scenario. Yeah, in this scenario. So there was a time when we looked at the national common entrance scores of over like 300 students at the time. And we used it as, of course, it being in its own case, a medium high stakes exam. We used it as a way to benchmark performance rubrics that we designed for the students. And what formative assessment and those data, and that what data helped us to do from formative assessment was that we looked at the school level point of view. We look at the subject level point of view, and we looked at the child or individual level point of view. And when we looked at those data points, we looked at how well the entire school was performing on subject areas. We also looked at how well specific subjects were performing. And when we looked at that data, we found out that we were struggling in science. And not just that data was just a science, because we saw better performances in the mathematics, better in English. And when it came to science, we knew that the average performance was under 55, which meant that there were students who might have been doing very well, and a lot more students who were not doing well. That kind of data tells you what to do. That kind of data tells you what to do. And then we drill down into the subject step and say, well, are there specific parts of it that we have a problem in? And so when we found that was it around the biological side of things, or life science, or was it physical science, or was it earth science? What kind of science was it that we were struggling with? And that kind of informed what next we were going to do. If 70% of our students were not in the green zone for those specific subject concept areas, we knew that was what we were not teaching well. And it helped to re-inform how we design curriculum. So that told us that it is possible that our mathematics is weak. It is possible that our science is weak. And maybe that's the only focus area we need to work on. Maybe, and that's how you begin to track your academic milestones and use it to inform how you redesign your curriculum. And that's actually where the formative assessment also comes to support. Because that way you are able to say benchmark upon benchmark, week upon week. Here is where it's breaking down for students. Here is where we're succeeding, and you can actually drill down to those specific details. So I'll stop there.
Wow. Very, very, very engaging. I'm already thinking of what we can do together to influence our space. Well done, Rhoda. Thank you. Tayo, would you like to share some of your own experiences in how you've used formative assessment to influence your school, influence policy making as an administrator?
Well, I thought I mentioned earlier how we use it in our own school year, and then what it does to us and what the data we obtain from formative assessment. So I was thinking we're talking about policymakers and the rest of them. So
So you're a
I wanted to
policymaker.
say,
You're actually a policymaker.
yeah. Thank you for that reminder. It's good. All right. So, but the problem is playing a devil's advocate here. As long as we have emphasis on examination and teachers are pressed for syllabus coverage, then we're going to be having problem. And I know that countries, developed countries, they are now looking at their education, making education more functional, making education more relevant to the student, developing individualized education plan for each of those students, so that they can then learn at their home pace. They can learn, they are more adaptive learning. But our system, sadly, does not provide the opportunity for us to be that flexible. Of course, that is not an excuse, because we have a responsibility to ensure that learning takes place in class and students are able to make progress and we're able to track their progress. But I just decided to put that dimension into the conversation, that when we now begin to look at curriculum at the upper echelon, we begin to look at it at the decision makers, not at our own level in school, but at the level of the developer and the designers of the curriculum. And then we are now playing less on examination. We are playing less on syllabus coverage, but we are paying more attention to students being able to solve problems, to students being able to innovate in the classroom. Then probably we can have a better world. We can have a better country at the moment. But then that does not excuse the fact that we need to ensure that formative assessment is used to help students identify gaps and then to help them to move forward. So in our school, in addition to what I said earlier, we use it to diagnose and address learning gaps. We use it to diagnose and address learning gap. And the data is more representative of learners' evolving understanding and developmental ability or capability. So, and the analytics or the data we obtain, or the analysis of the data we obtain, we use it to inform teachers of the quality of their instructional content, and then reveal the motivation levels of learners as well. And of course, also identify learning gaps for catch-up classes or intervention classes. And then, of course, also, we use the data obtained to expand and improve the school's curriculum offerings. So that, because in our school, every 2 years, we look at what we can do with the curriculum.
Thank you so much. Okay. Formative assessment is a very broad topic. Very, very broad topic. Okay. So it's a very broad topic, and we've actually exhausted our time. This session was supposed to be just 50 minutes, but the conversation kept going on and on and on. And I'm sure our viewers have gathered a lot of insights and knowledge of what formative assessment really is and how we should start advocating for formative assessment in our schools, in our classrooms, and in our society as a whole. So I'd like to end here. We'll be having more webinars like this, and I want us to take advantage of it and join more webinars to enhance our practice as educators. And really, really, it's all about the children. It's all about that child in your class. You know, how do you want to influence that child positively to improve that child's learning? That is what this webinar series is all about. So we want you to take advantage of this. It's totally free, and we want you all to keep joining the webinar as more and more come up. I would like to invite Dare to come on board to give us some insight into what Edves offers and then end the session. Hi, Dare.
Hi, Nila. Wow. It's been a very great session. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure we've learned quite a lot. I can see the thread. I'm very sure that all the educators on the platform have, major takeaways to go and implement in our various schools. We're quite behind schedule. So I just want to quickly, tell us a few things that Edvis is doing as far as formative assessment is concerned, and even in other aspects of managing your school. So basically, we at Edves were focused on digitizing learning and administrative processes in schools. One of the things we've been able to do, like Mr. David from Atlantic all said, is also to see how we can digitize the process of monitoring formative assessment in schools. And for me as a parent, I think it makes a whole lot of it's quite insightful if I can know from time to time basis what my child is doing well in school, which areas my child needs improvement in school. So it means that when I'm talking to my child back at home, if he needs to improve in a certain area in his academics, I can actually work with that child. I can talk to him in light of that. So, it's not just a student should not be beaten having failed the midterm exam or having failed, the 4CA test, or as the case may be. But this formative assessment report would ensure that each parent can see how their child is performing. And if you can see the screen very well now, you would actually be able to see how your child performed in relation to the last report that was sent home. So is your child, is he increasing, has he done better in a particular subject, or is he, coming down in a better subject? So if, for instance, the overall performance of this student is 71%, for instance, so in the subject, you want to see, is he doing better in this particular subject as compared to last time? I think this is a very useful tool for administrators and even for parents as well, because it actually helps us as parents to be part of the education journey of our students and not to be mad at our students when they fail. Somebody talked about, if homework, if assignments can be part of what can be used for formative assessment. And I think the panelists did justice to that. Yes. And one of the solutions that, one of the features that we have on the Edvis platform, if you can see my screen now, we have the student environment. From the student environment, teachers can actually give assignments to their students. You can upload notes for your students, and you can from there, students can submit this assignment digitally. So even if your school is being powered online, you can still use the assignment to carry out your formative assessment. And if your school is a brick and mortar school as well, you can actually use this as well to test your students as the learning continues. You need them to upload an image, or you just want them to respond to it. That is also possible. We also have a computer-based test environment on the platform, because I think I was talking to a teacher, and the teacher was like, oh, how do you keep track of this? How do you start marking from time to time? But with Edvis, we have the CBT module, which means that if you actually want to get their assessment for the formative report, it can actually be computer based. And with this, the teacher doesn't have to mark individual student score. And this can even be automatically fed into the report, so that it makes it easy for the teachers to be able to document. The system automatically grades the students, and everything is made available. Edvis does quite a lot. It's a very what we are aimed at doing in Edves is to ensure that from the point a student gains admission into your school, I mean, they can apply for admissions from the Edves platform. You can admit them on the Edves platform. And from that point, Edves is digitizing everything that happens, in the life of the student in the school. Is it attendance? Is it payment of school fees? Is it teachers uploading notes for the students? Is it managing hostel reports? All this and so much more is what Edves is doing. Even timetable management, parents can know what their student is doing part-time in the school. So Edves is a comprehensive school management and learning management platform that is able to digitize all your school processes. If you are already on Edves, please make sure that you start using the formative assessment functionality on the platform. If you are not yet on Edves, we have a very wonderful offer for you today. I'm sure quite a lot of us might be like, oh, we're not yet on Edves. How can we get on Edves? Getting on Edves is very, very easy. So if you would want to get on the Edves platform, we have a promo offer for you. We know that schools are already coming to an end of the term, and you might want to quickly take advantage of the offer that we have for you now. So we're giving out Edves to schools for the rest of March for free, and the whole of April for free as well. So you can get a free subscription for the remaining part of March and for the whole of April. All you just need to do is to pay a token for us to set up the platform for you, for us to train your teachers, your staff on how to use the portal, and then you can make use of the formative assessment. You can make use of the assignment tool. I think the assignment tool is something that is going to be very useful for schools, even as we end the term and go on holidays, because you can actually give your students assignments to do on the platform while they are home. You can upload videos for them to watch during the holiday and answer CBT based questions, because on the platform you can actually upload a video for your students, and then you can set questions that they need to answer when they finish watching the video, because you don't just want them to watch the video, you also want to be able to test their understanding of the video. And I think that's informative in nature as well. I'm not an educator, but I think that's informative in nature as well. Maybe Nena will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, there's a whole lot to gain in Edves. So the offer we have on the table is that you can get 25 futures for free on the Edves platform. And for the whole of March and April, all you need to do is to pay for a setup fee, which we use to set up the platform for you, and we'll come and train your users on the platform. By the way, we're currently in 6 different African countries. We're in Ghana, we are in Nigeria, we're in Rwanda, we're in Tanzania, we're in Zimbabwe. So, I mean, regardless of your location, we got you covered. We look forward to welcoming you on board on Edves. Please check the comment. You'll see the link to subscribe to the Edves platform and get started with Edves to automate your school processes. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this webinar. I think Nena, please, are you there? Okay, so do you have any closing words for our viewers?
I'm actually
today?
dancing here. I'm very excited. Viewers all benefited, and I'm very sure that so many of them would want to make life easier for their teachers and would want to start practicing formative assessment. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the next webinar. Bye.
Okay. So I can see a comment that says there should be a bonus for those of us already on the Edves platform. Yes, actually. Actually, the formative assessment is meant to be a feature that you need to pay for. But for everybody on the Edves platform, we've made it open to every user on Edves, regardless of the plan that you're on. So even if you're on the most basic plan on Edves, you have access to use the formative assessment. And okay. So let me say that your account manager is going to get across to you. There's something we have we're currently doing for our customers. If you have not gotten yours, I'm sure you'll get yours very soon. So that should serve as a bonus for you. It's a way of saying thank you to our customers. So if you're our customer rather, and you've not heard from your account manager or the sales executive in charge of your school, please reach out to them and tell them that you are expecting what I said. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. We're so sorry that we had to extend the time. I think the panelists were having a great time. I can see that the audience too were having a great time, so it's worth it. The next webinar is going to come up on Tuesday, April 19th. Tuesday, April 19th. So please watch out. We'll let you know the topic that we'll be discussing on the next webinar. But please take note of the date. Put it in your calendar. Tuesday, April 19th. We'll roll out the topic and the speakers in the coming days. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Please do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Edvis is solving a lot of problems for us. It is centralizing all the information. Temple School has 4 locations, and so it's not easy trying to coordinate everything. You want to be able to sit and look at all the information at a glance.
I think what Edvis did was they added value that was able to support our vision and our mission for the children that pass through us.
We're lucky that we were able to get the Edvis team on board before the lockdown, because with that we had all the information very centrally, and having that was very easy for us to be able to communicate all the different changes.
We now don't have to go to different places to get information. So you don't need to get different spreadsheets. You don't need to get access to different reports. You can eliminate the paperwork. That helps you. You know, I can actually be at a party and I can check on my phone and know what is going on. So,
okay, we do reports, but what do these reports tell us about our students? Can we have descriptive statements? For the first time, we were able to do that at the end of the last academic session, where not only did we have the grades and ranking of the students, but every teacher had the opportunity to describe the child within their setting, how well they're doing, how well they're coping with the lessons or the subject, and the needs for them to improve. And that was, for me, a big step, because our parents actually embraced.
Edvis has helped us concerning the preparation of results, has also helped us to have database of children or learners, the database of staff, database of parents, and to that extent, communication with parents and staff has become a lot easier.
The quality of Edvis reports has been very, very good. We have not had any cause to give a negative report.
Analyze information. I think it's the analysis. Again, I always say to the Edvis team is the fact that we can analyze data. So I know children performance according to gender. Just by touching a button. I know children's performance according to class. Children's performance according to, I can access my financial information, who has paid, who hasn't paid. So I think school owners who are not on Edvis, right, obviously need to be on Edvis.
Use Edvis today.
Use Edvis today.
Use Edvis today. You'll never go wrong.
I'm recommending Edvis today. Make sure you get on board.
Use Edvis today.
I would recommend Edvis to schools, big or small schools.
Use Edvis. What are you waiting for? Use Edvis. Come on now.
1 in every 5 Nigerians struggle to learn to read, write, and spell, and may even experience words jumping around the page or blurring. This is called dyslexia. Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty that affects reading, writing, and spelling, sometimes compounded by poor working memory, organization, and sequencing. But dyslexics are often very intelligent and creative and can excel if taught using the right techniques. Join Dyslexia Nigeria as we work to create an environment where dyslexics can reach their full potential. Contact us for information on screening and assessments, specialist tuition, teachers training, and resources. 1 in every 5 Nigerians struggle to learn to read, write, and spell, and may even experience words jumping around the page or blurring. This is called dyslexia. Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty that affects reading, writing, and spelling, sometimes compounded by poor working memory, organization, and sequencing. But dyslexics are often very intelligent and creative and can excel if taught using the right techniques. Join Dyslexia Nigeria as we work to create an environment where dyslexics can reach their full potential. Contact us for information on screening and assessments, specialist tuition, teachers training, and resources.
Edves is solving a lot of problems for us. It is centralizing all the information. Temple School has 4 locations, and so it's not easy trying to coordinate everything. You want to be able to sit and look at all the information at a glance.
I think what Edvis did was they added value that was able to support our vision and our mission for the children that pass through us.
We're lucky that we were able to get the Edvis team on board before the lockdown, because with that we had all the information very centrally, and having that was very easy for us to be able to communicate all the different changes.
We now don't have to go to different places to get information. So you don't need to get different spreadsheets. You don't need to get access to different reports. You can eliminate the paperwork. That helps you, you know. I can actually be at a party and I can check on my phone and know what is going on. So,
okay, we do reports. But what do these reports tell us about our students? Can we have descriptive statements? For the first time, we were able to do that at the end of the last academic session, where not only did we have the grades and ranking of the students, but every teacher had the opportunity to describe the child within their setting, how well they're doing, how well they're coping with the lessons or the subject, and the needs for them to improve. And that was, for me, a big step, because our parents actually embraced.
Edvis has helped us concerning the preparation of results, has also helped us to have database of children or learners, the database of staff, database of parents, and to that extent, communication with parents and staff has become a lot easier.
The quality of Edves reports has been very, very good. We have not had any cause to give a negative report.
Analyze information. I think it's the analysis. Again, I always say to the Edvis team, is the fact that we can analyze data. So I know children performance according to gender, just by touching a button. I know children's performance according to class, children's performance according to, I can access my financial information, who has paid, who hasn't paid. So I think school owners who are not on Edvis, right, obviously need to be on Edvis.
Use Edvis today.
Use Edvis today.
Use Edvis today. You never go wrong.
I'm recommending Edvis today. Make sure you get on board.
Use Edvis today.
I would recommend Edvis to schools, big or small schools.
Use Edvis. What are you waiting for? Use Edvis. Come on now.